Okay, hello. It has been some time since part 1 that I uploaded. I ended up getting sick, and I have 4 kids, so life happens, things get busy. I think I left off, or I'm pretty sure I left off with about where my husband's and I's relationship kind of started. My husband's and I's relationship has never been easy. And I'm hoping if you are listening to this video and you've had a relationship where things have been tough, where things have been hard, that I can give you hope in the fact that God will use all of those things for His glory. And if you stick with it, if you stick with the hard times, if you stick with it, if you truly believe that that is your person, that you are married to the right person, that God will make it worth your while. Part of the reason why I believe my husband is my person is because of how bad our relationship has been. And I know that that sounds backwards, right? You would think it would be rainbows and butterflies, and that would mean that he's the right person for me. But nowhere in the Bible has anybody had rainbows and butterflies as their life. You look at Daniel thrown into a lion's den. You look at Joseph sold into slavery. Nobody has had their life handed to them. God allows trials and tribulations for us to see how good He truly is, right? So I hope if you are listening to this and you hear the things that we have gone through, you may not understand how we're still together. You may not understand why we're still together. You may think I'm weak. You may think I'm stupid, and vice versa. You may think he is. But really, it's simply and solely because of God. Our relationship, our marriage is a testimony to God and the grace and the mercy that He has on everybody, and the heart change. So anyways, that's just a little beginning. Let's kind of get into this here. I met my husband when I was 21. My son was 3 months old. 2 to 3 months old. And we met on Facebook. My friend had sent me his Facebook account and was like, Sarah, I think you would really like this guy. Like, I know your type. I think you would really think he's cute. So I look at him and I'm like, yep. And so I add him. And as I'm looking at his profile, you can see a little bit of the person, right? Well, I'm noticing that this guy is 4.5. I think he's 4 years younger than me. Still in high school. He's a senior. And I just remember writing her and being like, did you know he's still in high school? And she was like, no, oh my gosh. Anyways, I had already sent the friend request, so it is what it is. I figured out when his birthday was, and I didn't write him. I didn't say anything to him until he had officially turned 18. But I mean, let's be real. Humans are hoes for the most part. There's some people that really aren't, but I knew exactly what I wanted. And so I waited till he was 18, and I wrote him a couple days after his 18th birthday. And at that point, my son was about 2 to 3 months. So he came over probably the night I wrote him. And that was really that. Our relationship in the beginning was solely that. It was, he came over if he had the availability, and we messed around. That lasted probably for I would say about 6 months. Maybe a little bit longer. Very sporadic on when we would actually hang out. A lot of the times it was nights that I went out to the bar because he was always up late. then he went in Miami. Like, I mean, the man just went away. Didn't say anything, didn't say his whys, didn't tell me what was going on, just stopped talking to me. Which, I mean, if you're in a relationship where really all you're doing is hooking up, it's not a relationship, it's a situationship. You know, it really shouldn't have been a big deal. But I am somebody, like in my previous video, I get attached to people very easily and very quickly, so I did care about him. And even when he went MIA, like, I just remember feeling this, like, this hurt that I couldn't really explain, because again, I mean, it was a mutual agreement that we were just kind of hooking up, but I wanted more with him. I felt something with him every time I was around him. Like, I genuinely just liked being around him. So it hurt when he went MIA. About a year later, I would say, he ended up writing me though and apologizing for going MIA, had told me that it was because he had ended up getting in a relationship with a girl, which I kind of picked up on through Snapchat and stuff. He would occasionally post pictures or videos of him and this girl, so obviously I kind of figured, you know, that's probably why. But he had never said anything to me about it. But then he ended up deleting all of his social media a couple months prior to him writing. Or like, I think so. No, never mind. I take that back. He didn't. Because he wrote me on Facebook. And that's how he apologized, was on Facebook. And I remember it was June 21st of 2018. And I remember that for a specific reason. So he says he's sorry, and he says that he's start going to church and he wants to start talking again, and so he comes over again that night. But this time he made it clear, like, I don't want to do any hooking up, I just want to hang out. And so we did that for a couple of months. Actually, he would come over, I knew I could count on him, so I would still be going out to the bars, and I would call him if I needed a ride. And he would come over and he would always bring food. Like, food has always been something my husband and I can connect on. We both love to eat. At this point, I was still, after I had my son, I know in the previous video I touched on the drugs aspect of things for me. I was about 100 pounds when I got pregnant with my son, and I'm 6 feet tall, so I was super skinny, just skin and bones. After my son, I was about 135 pounds, so I was still really small. But I loved food. And I was probably at that point in my life, after having my son, that was the most confident I had ever been. In how I looked physically. Anyway, so he would bring food over and we would just hang out. Like, we genuinely just had a good time. I was open and willing to learn about the Bible. So we would sit down sometimes when he would come over, and he would just kind of teach me about what's going on. He started inviting me to go to church. And I remember I told my mom that this guy wanted to take me to church, and she was so excited. And they would take my son for me, and we would go to church, and that went on for about the first 3 months, 3.5 months, I would say. We ended up starting to hook up again, because I mean, it's one of those things where it's like, if that's a part of your sin life is sex, then that's going to continue. And not only that, but we had already known, like, we knew what each other had to offer, and we knew that we liked whatever each other had to offer, right? And so we end up hooking up, and then on my son's second birthday, I invited him over to the birthday party, and he said no. Now at this time, still, we are not together. We are just hanging out, having a good time, getting to know each other. You know, I'm starting to understand and learn the Bible. I'm going to church, but I still have not chosen Christ. Clearly by my actions, right? I'm still going out to the bars and I'm hooking up with this guy who is trying to lead this lifestyle. And I end up getting pregnant with our daughter, our 5-year-old. And I was so scared to tell this man, and it wasn't anything to do with him. It was my own insecurities and of how things went with my son's dad. But I text him and he comes over, and I'm standing like in the doorway of my bathroom. I had a room where my bathroom had like a door, they were joined. So I'm standing in my bathroom door and I'm looking at the stick, and then I'm looking at him, and then I'm looking at the stick, and then I'm looking at him. And I remember him being like, you don't look okay. Is something wrong? Like, you're making me nervous. And I'm pretty sure I just was like, I'm pregnant. And he took a couple seconds. He didn't say anything. And he said, I'm not mad, but I just need a minute. And I said, okay. I'm like crying at this point, and a couple minutes later he's like, can I have a hug? And it sounds so cheesy, but in that moment, like, that was what I needed. I'm very much a physical contact human. Being hugged, signs of affection, like, that is how I know. That is how you can show me your love, is physical affection. It's just how it is. So at that time, that is what I needed the most. Because I was so scared. I was so scared that he was just going to run away. And I would again be alone raising 2 kids now. So we moved forward, obviously, with me being pregnant, and I remember telling him, like, I hadn't met his parents yet, so I was like, don't tell your parents until, like, I meet them for myself, not meet them under the circumstances that I'm pregnant. Which, of course, he did not do. And so eventually I have to go and meet his mom, and I remember his mom's first words to me was like, I don't like you and I don't want to be here meeting you. And I'm like, because mind you, I still have like zero backbone. Like, at this point, any confrontation I had ever had up until this point, like, I had friends that would step in. If we were at the bars and there was confrontation, like, I had friends that would step in. I am just not good at confrontation. I don't feel confident enough in myself to handle those situations. And I don't like hurting people. I don't like it. I'll do it. You know, my husband and I, that right there is proof that I will do it. I will hurt people. But I don't like to, if unnecessary. So my pregnancy with my daughter and my relationship with my now husband, we were still not in a relationship, meaning like boyfriend, girlfriend. We were not committed to each other. But the way that I am, I was fully committed to him. I was not talking to anybody. Like, he was my focus. Notice how I said he was my focus. God was not my focus. He was my focus. Pleasing him, trying to be what he wanted me to be. Even if that meant faking it, right? Just fake it till you make it, Sarah. He'll like you eventually. And then we started going to this church that honestly has still affected me to this day. And my trust in the church. It's affected me in my confidence in myself. It's affected me in multiple different ways. This place made me feel and look insane. It caused my husband to hate me. essentially, just in a brief snippet, it ended up being more like a cult. He believed everything that they would tell him. I mean, why wouldn't you? He was basically held on a pedestal and focused on as like the number one person in that church. Got essentially whatever he needed, but they were also very, very hard on him. From my understanding, I didn't see any of it because I stopped going after a while, and they really tried to make it so when he was there, I wasn't there. So I didn't see a whole lot of what was happening, but he has spoken about it briefly. I hope one day he'll tell me more, because there's a lot of things that I don't understand. I don't understand why they didn't like me. And I mean, I guess it doesn't really matter, but just for my own knowledge and my own healing, you know, because I trusted them. I did. I liked them at first. And for some reason, one of them liked me in the beginning, and then all of a sudden switched. In my mind, it was all of a sudden. Maybe it wasn't. And they did everything in their power that they could to ruin and destroy Luke's and I's relationship. Because prior to this church, like, we were doing good. Like, I could have saw us being together at some point, like him stepping up and truly wanting to be in a relationship. Maybe not, but that's what I thought. But they made me look insane. You know, they would tell him, don't talk to her, have nothing to do with her, she's the devil, she's not good. Well, then they're telling me, pursue him, keep after him, don't let him get out of your sight, don't do XYZ, like, he needs to be a part of your son and his daughter's childhood. But then they're telling him not even to be in the delivery of our daughter, like not to be in the room with when our daughter's born. And it just, I mean, I just felt insane. And my husband at the time, I looked insane. You know, when you have these people that you trust are telling you opposite, making him show text messages. Anytime that we talked, he wasn't allowed to step foot in my house. He had to have somebody come with him to my house. But they're telling me, you know, oh, he's being so strange and we haven't told him to do any of that. I don't know why he's doing that. I looked crazy to this man. They're telling him I'm crazy, you know, and he's calling me crazy and insane. And I'm finding out, you know, during this time that he's bringing other women to this church that they're not telling me. And I thought, you know, for sure, at least the pastors might not like me, but the people at the church like me. They would respect me enough to tell me if he brings somebody. No. And I just felt so weak and so vulnerable in that time. And finding out that, like, this person that I'm about to have a kid with is okay with hurting me at this extent sucked. You know, I thought this was a place where I could trust the people that are there, and yet he's bringing other women there and not telling me about it. I found out through one of his friends. I'm finding out, you know, I'm starting to find out kind of his darker side. I'm finding out that he's sleeping with other women. Now, granted, we were not together. So what do you expect? But at the same time, you make this like, you make this persona about a person in your mind, I guess. And when it's not in your face, it's easy to lie to yourself. You know, it's easy to say, yeah, well, he says he's a hoe, but I doubt it's as bad as it is. Or, well, I asked him and he said he wasn't talking to anybody, so that must be true. You know, or you think, well, I've been to his apartment and I've met all of his roommates, and there's no way all of them would be supporting him in his actions. They don't give a fuck. They don't care. They don't care. You know, and looking back, I looked like a freaking fool. Because I'm over here like, anytime, if he told me to jump off a bridge, I would jump. And it just goes to show like how far from God I really was. I had nothing to lean on. He was my God. I prioritized him above all else. And I would have literally done anything for him. I believed anything he told me, you know, all these things. And a lot of that is being naive. A lot of that is just how I'm wired. I'm wired to trust. I'm wired to full-heartedly love people. That's the heart that God has given me. God gave me a heart that is truly a loving one. And it gets me in trouble. It really does. But it's also one of my biggest... It's one of my biggest qualities that God can use for good. Is my loving heart. And so we have our daughter. He was not in the room. That in itself caused issues. I know towards the end of him being there, because he did eventually stop going. I stopped going pretty early on. He did eventually stop going, and I remember I posted something stupid on Facebook, just like, I didn't call them out or anything, but I remember being like, when you trust a church and they go behind your back, or something like that, was a status that I made. And I got a call from one of the pastors, and the pastor was like, we've never spoken about you, like anything that you're talking about isn't true, you should keep your mouth shut. Yours and his relationship has never even been spoken in this building. And I remember and I'm like crying at this point. Because again, I don't like confrontation. I don't like upsetting people. I don't want people to not like me, and I don't want to not like others. I worry a lot about what people have to think and say about me. A lot. Which is one of the reasons why I've also hesitated on filming another video, because I've watched the other one a couple times and I didn't even like what it looked like. So I didn't even want to post it based off of my physical appearance. But who cares at this point? Who cares? But this pastor literally told me to take my kids, to take myself, and to move away and to never contact him again. Because that would be what was best. Is to just go away. And I remember just being so hurt by that. Like, my kids and I aren't even worth him being a part of our life. Like, that's really what you think. I would say probably about 2 months after that, he stopped going to the church, and I saw an immediate shift in him. He's told me a little bit about why he decided to stop going, but that was also a very painful time in his life as well, because he fully trusted these men who ended up, he's now seeing and realized that they were doing nothing but harm. So that time in our lives together was very, very, very traumatizing for both of us. But it's part of our story, so we kept moving forward. The next year is really just a lot of just the same stuff. Him still hooking up with people, me being just trying to get him to see that I love him. I remember a lot of my prayers consisted of help him to see that I love him, help him to see that I'm good for him, help him to see that I'm enough, that our kids love him, because at this point my son was calling him, oh no, he wasn't yet calling him dad, but he's all my son knew as a father figure, because my son's dad was never in the picture, still isn't. And just a lot of still finding out that he's hooking up with people, and me looking like a fool. Essentially a fool due to my own part. He never once was like, hey, let's get together, let's be together. He was he always honest in telling me what he was doing? No, but we were never in a relationship, so really he didn't have to be honest either. But oh yeah, and the reason why I remember the June 21st message is because our daughter's due date was exactly a year to that day. So we got pregnant with our 5-year-old, and her due date ended up being June 21st. She ended up being born on June 19th, but her due date was that. And I always was like, how crazy is that his first message back to me to apologize and everything was on June 21st. And then her due date was the same day, exactly a year to it. I always just thought that was so, like, to me, I always kind of use that as like, okay, like, she was meant by God. Like, for some reason, somehow that was my way of understanding, like, okay, God had this in his plan. And I still believe that 100%. And I told him pretty early on that I thought he would be my husband. Again, I looked insane. This man thought I was crazy. Who's crazy now? Because we are married. So then, again, after we have her, it's a lot of just us still hooking up, me trying to convince him to be with me, essentially, him not wanting any part of it. And now I've learned that a lot of it was he was sleeping with multiple women. And now it's just kind of who he is. He will self-proclaim himself as a hoe. It's a side of him that is hard for me to love, but I've chosen to love. And I should have known, because on my birthday that next year, our daughter was almost 2. My birthday's in May. She would have turned 2 in June. I found out that he was he had a Tinder and was talking to and attempting to hook up with one of my, at the time, really good friends, who, like, I watched her kids were at her house. Like, he blatantly knew that I knew this girl. And she herself is also a hoe. I can say that from knowing stories about her, or from her own mouth, truths from her own mouth, her telling me things that she has done. And luckily, for my own sake, insanity, because had it gone through, that would have really, really hurt. But she reached out to me and she let me know that he was talking to her and trying to do all these things, and I didn't believe her. She told me that she found him on Tinder, or vice versa, whatever. But she told me, that he had a Tinder, and I was like, no, he doesn't. I'm with him all the time. Because we really were. We were together all the time, which is why it was always so difficult for me to understand. He may not have slept at our house, or at my house, but he was always with me. And so, because of our kid, it wasn't because of me, but it was because we had children. And I was like, no, he's not. Like, I'm with him so frequently that there's no way. And she was like, Sarah, he has a Tinder, and screenshot everything and sent it to me. And I was like, well, he's had a fake one made, like someone made one of him before, so it's probably just that. And she was like, yeah, no, like, he has a Tinder. And I was like, well, get a phone number or a Snapchat so I know, like, it's actually him. And they added each other on Snapchat, and then she, like, recorded it, and it was 100% him. And mind you, it's on my birthday, which, like, birthdays in this house aren't really celebrated, but it's still kind of a jab. Like, dang. Like, you couldn't even tell me happy birthday that day, which he still doesn't, but you can make it so much bigger in your mind, when all that stuff's going on. Like, really? You couldn't even tell me happy birthday, but you can go and try and mess with my friend. And she came up, she ended up driving up because I went up to another city about 2 hours away, and she came up and celebrated my birthday with me and filmed some stupid videos of me being highly intoxicated and sending them to him of me basically cussing him out. And just being a fool. And I remember I got so drunk and so high on drugs that night because I was so hurt. Because I truly loved this man. That I didn't want to feel any of it. And drugs and drinking have always been my escape, right? That's what I like to do. I like to feel nothing. And I can feel nothing when I'm on them. I can feel like Superwoman. Like nothing's gonna hurt me. My feelings, my emotions, like nothing is gonna get in my way, right? So I did so much coke that night. It wasn't even funny. We went and got Molly that night. I was drinking, like just going insane. And there was this guy there that was my best friend's cousin, and I was so tempted by the devil to have sex with him. And I didn't do it because that's just not, it's not necessarily my personality previously. Obviously it was back in part like 1, but as I got older and once I had my son, like that was just something I just wasn't interested in as much. And I loved him, so I didn't want to. And sex to me as I got older meant a lot more than it did when I was younger. After realizing that you could sleep with somebody 1,000 times and that they won't love you anymore. So to me, it meant a lot more. I just chose not to. Anyways, well then fast forward, you know, because I still loved him very, very much at that point. And we have a kid together, so I still see him. Regardless of how angry I am at him, I still have to see him because I have always promised myself. Yes?
What are you doing?
A video. I'll be out in just a minute, okay?
Mom.
Yes? I'll be out in just a minute, Isabella.
Can I have a dream catcher now?
You can ask your dad, Izzy. Isabella, go. Sorry. So fast, you know, I still have to be around him. I still have to see him, and I still love him very, very much, and I still care about him. This whole time, by the way, after I stopped going to that one church, I didn't really step foot into another church. I was so church hurt. So then on my daughter's 2nd birthday, me and him hook up again. Mind you, nothing new. He was the only person I was hooking up with, though, through this whole time, like since day 1. And a month later, find out we're pregnant with our other daughter, our 2nd daughter. She's 2 now. Almost 3. She's almost 3. And I wasn't really nervous that time because I knew regardless of our relationship, like he would at least be a dad. And that's kind of my biggest thing, is I just wanted to be a dad. I didn't want to be a dad. I apologize. I am a female. I wanted him to be a dad regardless of our relationship. And I just wanted our kids to have a dad. And I knew he is a great dad. Through everything we've been through, it doesn't matter how much he hates me, he's a great dad. And so that was like, you know, that was reassuring. I knew once I told him I was pregnant, it would be okay. And me showing him that I still loved him after he had attempted to hook up with one of my friends, I think it did, from his own words, showed him that I truly did love him. And he had changed a lot at that point. He moved in. we decided that we were actually going to be together. We still didn't date though. We ended up just getting married instead. So I found out that I was pregnant in June, and we got married that October, and my daughter was born in March. And everything up until my daughter was born was good, actually. We had a great relationship. I was extremely happy. There were no more issues at that moment with females. Our daughter was born. She's our 2-year-old. And then shit really hit the fan. I'm gonna make another video though to explain that part, because this one's already really long. So this next video that I'm gonna make is what has happened within the last year and a half, and I can honestly say what's happened in the last year and a half is what has brought me the closest to God. It's also probably the worst year and a half of my life, with a lot of good, but a lot of bad. But I can sit here on this side and say that I love my husband more now than I have previously, and I love God more now than I have previously. I still have a long way to go when it comes to my relationship with Christ. I'm definitely not anywhere near what I want to be, or what I can be, or what he needs me to be. But I now understand that I truly have a purpose. I understand who he is more. I have seen him work in my life, and I can look back and make these videos and see him in these videos as well. So again, if you're somebody that just needs to see, you know what, I'm not the only one that goes through crap. My relationship might suck, but there is God in there. That you can come out of drugs, you can come out of alcohol, you can come out of those addictive behaviors and be okay. It's because of him. It's because of God, 100%. But I would love to be able to help anybody through that. So if you feel the need, somehow reach out.